All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is episode number 6 of Changemakers. This is Anthony Russo. I'm going to be your host for this episode, as you probably recognize me from all of the other episodes. We've got a really awesome special guest on this, and we'll be introducing her in just a minute, but we're going to go and let you guys start making your way, you gentlemen and ladies, start making your way to Changemakers over on the Be the Change page. Again, this will be turned into our podcast. It will be going starting tomorrow. As a lot of you guys are already subscribers of our podcast, which is awesome. But if we've got any American Ninja Warrior fans, obstacle fans, people that are in just awe of people that have the never give up attitude, and you want to have that same attitude, this is the show for you. So again, share this out there. This is a great one to share. No politics on this one, which is fantastic. This is just fun. We get to talk about all the things that make people want to create change in the world around them. And we're going to be starting in less than 30 seconds. So share it out there, get it out there. Maggi Thorne from American Ninja Warrior coming up in just about 20 seconds right here on the Be the Change Network, Changemakers. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Anthony Russo. Welcome back to Changemakers. This is, again, episode 6. We are super excited to have this going on. I know some of you guys might be watching different things right now, but this one is going to be a fantastic episode. For those of you that already subscribe to our podcast, thank you very much. For those of you that don't, make sure to check it out. You just go to hashtag BeTheChange.com and then /podcast. I'm going to put that up there. If you don't catch the full episode or want to catch some of our previous ones, that's the way to do it. We're also going to have Changemakers again tomorrow night with Seth Rotberg. So we are actually going to be doing 2 Changemakers this week. Don't know if we're going to do a Truth Will Set You Free. The plan is to possibly do a late night one tonight, but we don't know. So stay tuned for that. Again, this is a great episode for you guys to share out there, as we have a phenomenal guest. If you're a fan of American Ninja Warrior, or if you're a fan of anything that is all about a never say die attitude, this is the show for you. So make sure you share that out there right now. Also, if you want to check us out on YouTube, it's youtube.com/C/BeTheChangeUSA. I'm going to go ahead and drop this away, and I'm going to go ahead and let you guys see that we do have some new stuff, some new merchandise. And I'll be playing that on the bottom of the screen on and off with our Patreon. We do have sweaters. I know you guys wanted sweatshirts, as well as potentially some winter hats. We're working on that. Apparently there was a little thing in shipping, because guess what? Ship happens. Get it? Ship. Moving on. So we got, again, sweatshirts on the page, new hats as well, just not the winter hats just yet. You guys asked for them, hoodies, etc. We've got them. And last but not least, again, we do all this with Be the Change. As of right now, it is all self-funded, and we would love your help. We've got some Patreons that have joined in, and I'm going to start doing trivia with Patreons only next week, because I found that I've got a whole bunch of back stock of clothes and Be the Change gear that I want to give out. So if you're a Patreon member, $5 to $100, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're going to be invited on that call. As a lot of you guys know, this was a rough week and been dealing with some family stuff, as well as just life changes. Right now, I'm currently in my new RV, which is going to be my mode of transportation and living for the next foreseeable future, which will be fun. So maybe I'll be in a town near you. Anywho, ladies and gents, it's about that time to get the show started. I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. I am ridiculously excited for this guest. I've been friends with this lady for, I'll have to ask her, but I think it's been 5 or 6 years, according to Time Hop, and the photos that have come up from the Texas State Fair, the Titan of Texas Challenge, when I met Maggie and her whole cast of characters. I think it's been about 5 years. So I'm going to introduce her. I'm ridiculously excited. This is a 5-time American Ninja Warrior contestant. She has battled back from adversity. She's also lived through adversity and battled back. She's been a motivational speaker all over the country. She brings her kids with her who are phenomenal and probably more athletic than her. Just wait to see them someplace. But they're a blast to watch. If you have not seen her before, after this show, you're going to have to Google her. You're going to have to check it out. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, I'll introduce to you guys Miss Maggi Thorne.
Hello! And of course, I heard you talking about merch. I'm repping it. Repping it again.
Maggie, I don't know if you realize how excited we've been talking about you being on Changemaker since the very beginning. And between you and Daryl Davis, and I'm not slamming any of the other guests, I've been wicked excited to bring you on. So I'm so excited for you to be here. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure. And I 100% stand behind and believe and celebrate everything you're doing for Be the Change. I know your heart behind it, your passion, and what you continue to do, which is absolutely amazing. So it's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. So I'm getting a couple comments from people that I'm blurry. Do I look blurry to you?
Not to me, but I also say I have a huge giant ring light in my eyeballs, so I might not have the best vision on you right now.
Well, at least people can hear us, so we've got that going for us. You look completely clear to me, so let's hope that everybody can see. Anyways, all right, Maggie, the whole concept of Changemakers, again, as most of the audience knows, Changemakers is all about people that have created change in the world around them. They've created change in their own life, and then they've created change that actually inspires others to create change. So I want to start out first. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, just your background, whether it's American Ninja Warrior, whatever it might be. Tell everybody a little bit more about you.
Absolutely. And as you know, I'm all about never give up. That's my handle. That's right there, NVR_GVP, tag, celebrate. And that really started for me, and why I have the bow. It's everything you dreamed about when you were a kid. It's true no matter what age you are. I do believe with every part of my soul that anything is possible for your life. Growing up, I was in a low-income home. My brothers were in and out of jail. They were high school dropouts. And I actually never played a single sport until I was 14 years old. And the only reason I did is because a teacher in PE thought I looked fast and told the track coaches, and then I went on to become the #1 runner in California for the 100 hurdles, a state champion. So I literally was like this poor little girl who had no idea what running shoes even were. My first day of track practice, I showed up in sports shoes because that's what they said. And my track coaches were like, yeah, those aren't running shoes. But in my family, I mean, they had to scrimp and save just to even get me a pair of running shoes. So that's where I was. And most people don't realize, they're like, oh my gosh, you can just do anything. I'm like, no. It's so much hard work, commitment, dedication, discipline, and you can do it. And you know this.
Right.
So I really struggled with grades. I went to junior college. Then I ended up getting a full ride to Nebraska. And along the way, I realized that, like, if I wanted different, then I had to live it. And I have this thing I have written down recently. If you don't like it, lead it. Or if you don't like it, leave it. Like, it's one of the two. If you don't like it, lead it or leave it. And I think we have to make those decisions at every corner. And even leading up to American Ninja Warrior, many people don't realize, yes, I left the show with an enormous amount of success. But the very first year I was on Ninja Warrior, I face planted and I fell, and then I got rejected. And then I got rejected. It wasn't until year 4 of Ninja Warrior that I became the top female in my region, went on to finals, started doing Ninja versus Ninja, Spartan Ultimate Team Challenge, became one of the most well-known TV personalities for Ninja Warrior and Spartan. But that was because of the failure that I had, and I didn't allow it to be a period, but just a comma. And it allowed me also to fall forward into my future.
So I don't think I knew that. So you were on American Ninja Warrior, didn't do well your first time, and then didn't get invited. Because I know if people don't know, the application process is not easy. You're not a shoo-in unless you're like the top few people. So you're saying you started, you got in, failed, and then they didn't ask you back for a few more years?
Yeah, I applied again and again. I mean, I fell in the very first obstacle. I, tripped on the steps, and then, just those. Because as a female, I mean, I didn't know a lot about Ninja Warrior. I saw it, my former roommate, Jessie Graff, many of you know, she's amazing. She was on it. I was like, I could do that. And I thought, like, I've got this. Like, I'm going to be hitting the buzzer. I thought I had it in the bag. And so I have very, very powerful legs, not only from being a runner, but being a hurdler. And I just have big mama thighs that could push a car. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to one-step these. And I tried. Apparently, they're not that strong, because Jessie was like, oh, what were you thinking? Like, even there's a lot of guys that don't one-step them. And so, I just didn't know. And that was my own arrogance. You learn. And so, I actually, at one point, spent 30 days in a walk online for Ninja Warrior. And that was actually a wonderful experience. One, I got to know all the competitors better, shaped my life in such a huge way. But like, if you want something, if you really want it, you just have to decide ahead of time, like, what's the price? All of our goals, dreams, visions, they're going to have a price. And then if you accept what that sacrifice or what that price is, that's when we can still have joy and fulfillment, all these things, even when things aren't panning out. Like, if your only goal is to win, I mean, I'm sorry to tell you, it's probably not going to be joyful. Like, you're going to get it and you're going to be like, oh, wait, what was this for? So, you know, really living with purpose. And that's, man, along the way, so many people criticized me for trying again and again and getting rejected. But I knew God wanted me to do it. God's like, nope, go. And if I hear God say go, I am definitely the person who I'm jumping out of the boat. I'm like, I don't know if there's buoy. I don't know who's there. Like, am I in shark-infested waters? But I heard God say go, so I'm going.
So then you came back. Since we're talking about American Ninja Warrior, we'll stick on that for a little bit. So again, and ultimately it's a great, and you and I have a very similar philosophy on failure, because, you know, I talk about failure a lot, and the way you talk about winning, like, everybody puts so much emphasis on this one thing, when in the end, there's so many great things that happen along the way that when you get to that point, it's like, well, I should have enjoyed the ride a little bit more and actually paid attention to what was going on. And we talk about you talk about winning, I talk about it as perfection. You look at people in baseball, like we idolize this concept of perfection and winning, and really there's so many good things to be had just along the way. And ultimately, perfect games are just that. It's a moment in time, brief moment in time, and then it's over, and then it's gone, and then we're back to where we started. And if we don't enjoy the journey and we keep seeking this perfection and winning, we're gonna miss out on so many amazing things. So that was my synopsis of what you just said. That's my own version, but yes, I
just watched volleyball, so I'm 100% tracking with you.
Yeah. All right, so let's go back to American Ninja Warrior. You end up applying, and this is probably about what was the year that you did it first?
2014 was my first season. So here we are in 2010 now. Or wait, no.
2020. Yeah, I mean, I wish it was 2010. 2020 is an interesting year. So, okay. So you started in 2014 and then didn't compete in 15 and 16?
Yeah, 2016 was the year that I walked on. So I got rejected, and then I went and sat in the walk-on line for 30 days, and I got to obstacle 3, and I got DQ'd on obstacle 3, which was a balance. For some reason, I have a real hard struggle with balance. Even though I'm a sprinter, apparently I should have really good balance. But yeah, I didn't get a lot of airtime, and then just had a breakout in that next 2017, 2018, 2019, and then of course I didn't compete this year.
So for people just joining us, we just jumped a little bit in numbers. This is Maggi Thorne from American Ninja Warrior, motivational speaker. For those just joining, whether podcast or whatever it is. So we're welcoming Maggi. We're talking a little bit about American Ninja Warrior. We're talking about the never give up attitude. So Maggi, when you and I met, was that a year you were not on American Ninja Warrior?
I think it may have been a year that I was not. That would be correct.
16.
Because I hadn't been on the Spartan Ultimate Team Challenge yet, and when I met you, I had it because my teammates were decided at the Texas State Fair. Someone was looking for another teammate for Spartan. Spartan wasn't well known yet for the Ultimate Team Challenge, and they're like, "Hey, I heard you're an OCR runner. We need another girl." And then we went on to be one of the top teams on the show. So I mean, God knows what He has. And I actually wanted to do Spartan, and I was trying to find teammates, and I couldn't find anybody. So I was like, "All right, maybe it's just not for me." And God's plan is always the best plan.
That's awesome. I remember after I met you, I turned on TV and there was one of the OCR challenges, and I'm like, I think Maggi is getting stepped on right now. There's a guy launching off of her face and shoulders to get over an obstacle. I'm like, well, she's gangster. Cool. All right.
That's accurate.
Yeah. So you get back onto American Ninja Warrior after the walk-on year, and then you got in, and you also were doing all these different things. So what year did you become the leader of your region for females?
2017. That was
Okay.
Kansas City. And I remember once I knew I was going to compete in Kansas City, I actually drove down there and I just stood in front of Union Station and I prayed, and I was like, all right, God, I don't know what's going to happen here. I stood in the spot on Union Plaza and was just soaking it in and being like, I'm going to be back here in 2 months, competing, and I have no idea what's in store, but it's in your hands. And then it went on went on to be the only female to beat Crank It Up at the time, one of the only people to beat Crank It Up. There weren't a lot of people that beat it at that time. And then the top female from my region. And I was like 2 moves away from finishing the 5th obstacle. I would have had the warp wall that year, but I think the way God had it planned was it was supposed to be in my 5th year for sure. So
what's your on all the obstacles that are repeat offenders every year, and I know they always try to make the course harder and change it and do different weird things. What is your least favorite obstacle?
Oh gosh, the ring hopper kind of did me in. I wasn't very good at it. And it was pretty similar to coconut climb. Not coming from like a pole vault or gymnastics background, I don't have great like body proprioception. I try to muscle it, I tend to. And so it's a little more challenge. I've had to work on that side of understanding my body mechanics more. And then anything that's a cliffhanger, like I am one of the bigger ninjas. I'm not 5 foot, I'm 5'7". I'm like 135, 140. So in terms of the show, like I'm a big girl. And that's a lot of weight to carry when all you're holding yourself by is like 2 inches of your fingertips. And you're like, it's a lot.
You're actually, by height, some of the guys coming in are shorter than you now. I mean, they've realized that the lighter weight, wiry strength is really the number one combination. So. Oh,
absolutely. Usually when I'm on set, all my friends are like under here and my head is just above everybody. And I'm like, I feel like a giant. Cool.
Yeah, I know. We Barclay, obviously, she's like 4'11". Well, Jessie Graff is about your height, right?
Yeah. Funny thing, actually, Jessie and I are not only the same height, we're the same weight, and we're actually down to the same exact body fat percentages on almost every part of our body. We are very much the same.
If you guys combined both of your body fats and added probably 2 more ninjas, you might be reaching my post-COVID body fat percentage right now, just so you know.
And I'm just going to tell you, man, it's an excuse. I'm not going to let you do it. Get after it.
Well, now I got a little bit more settled. The dog, most of our audience knows who Woody is, the new pup. He loves when I do push-ups, so he adds a little weight to it, and he gets on top. It's fantastic. Thanks, Shani.
So cute.
I'm noticing we're not having as many comments as usual, but everybody's like, well, it's because it's not as controversial. So let's do something controversial and talk about failure. I don't know. That sounds good. And also, if there is questions that come up, actually, let's go into your injury. But if there is questions that come up, guys, please feel free to ask them. This is about an hour show. And if there's anything fun that you want to ask Maggie, I will hopefully see it and throw it up in the chat box. In the meantime, go ahead and hit the like button. Go ahead and hit share. Put the hearts on there. You know what to do. Okay, Mags, let's talk.
So people know I'm super transparent. Don't be afraid to ask anything. I will answer it. So.
Yes, and Maggie's been through a lot. So we're going to continue with the injury on American Ninja Warrior, and then we're also going to talk about just the ups and downs of life and being a single parent mom and all these different things. But finish up on and are you currently, I know the last time we talked, you were still yes to being done. Are you currently not going back to American Ninja Warrior?
Oh, I've been thinking about this a lot. My strength has come back in a really supernatural way. And I still have some areas that I'm definitely lacking. I get fatigued pretty easily. My body's inconsistent. Like if I do a really hard workout, I don't know what it's going to do. Sometimes I still lose my vision. The fatigue is so severe, I pretty much almost can't do anything for the rest of that night. And this isn't like, I know some people sometimes like they joke and they're like, oh man, like that happens to me. I'm like, no, this is like next level. So for me, I want to be smart about it. I was in outpatient rehab for almost a year, spending about 20 hours a week doing speech, cognitive, PT, OT, physician therapy, ocular, vision. Yeah, like it was a lot. And I think if my head takes one more hit, it might do me in. So that part makes me nervous. But let's get into the butt. Well, not the butt, even though I got one of those. Into the what if, because I'm kind of a what if person. And I think what if this becomes a point of encouragement where I actually have no idea how well I'm going to do, but I just try. And that's encouraging to people who have had a brain injury to not let it stop them for the rest of their life. Like, it's not about a warped wall anymore. Like, what if I just complete obstacle 1? What if I don't? Like, what if I end Ninja Warrior like I started, going out on obstacle 1? I mean, the whole point would be that I just did it. So I'm really trying to process that. And like, also, I wish God would just like call me on my cell phone and be like, yo, I'm all go on this. And I'd be like, oh, cool, that's super clear. Like, thanks, Lord. And I don't have that right now, but I will say, like, I've been training. I'm not too far off on pull-ups. Like, I'm able to kind of crank out about 15 pull-ups. My grip is pretty, I've lost my grip endurance quite a bit. I don't know. That's a really long explanation, which gives you this thing that I'm in process of that. I'm not ruling it out at this point. I used to rule it out when I'd say, knowing how sick I felt all the time. I mean, every day literally was like feeling like I'd just gotten off the worst roller coaster you've ever ridden. It was a constant state of nausea, vision loss, severe fatigue. I mean, I couldn't process, some days not functioning. So I don't want to feel like that again.
So Wendy has a question. It says, is it something you want to do? I think that's a very interesting
I love American Ninja Warrior. That's a great question, and thank you for that. I love it. It was really hard. Like, it was traumatic for me. I actually did trauma counseling because everything I loved and was passionate about, it stopped in a second. And then I tried to do it, which shut my body down. And God was like, no. Like, if you ever put it like a kid in timeout, or like, you know, you with the pet, you're like, no, like the spray bottle. You know, I felt like God was like, sit. And it was hard. Even, I don't know, this is going to sound really terrible, when the season got moved to this year and everybody just got moved to like one location to do it once.
Right.
It almost made it like more peaceful for me, because I didn't have FOMO of like, everybody's going to all the cities and I'm going to miss out. Like, I was struggling with that a little bit, if I'm honest.
It was a weird year. If there was a good year to take off, this was the year to do it. This was, I mean, there were so many intangibles. There was, if somebody around you had COVID, or if any of these things happened, you got disqualified without really having the chance. So it's like, if there was a good year to take off, like, God put the right year in front of you to take off. Am I right?
No, you're right with that. And I actually think that God definitely had this be the year, in terms of just being able to, I think, help serve fellow ninjas who didn't get that opportunity, or all of a sudden had a loss. Like, maybe they were prepared, and then because of the pandemic, like, they overtrained and got injured and then lost their opportunity. And people were like, I don't know how to deal with this. And I'm like, quarantine? I've been in TBI quarantine since August of 2019. Because in August of 2019, all the doctors told me, you can't travel, you can't train, you can't play with your kids. Because I couldn't, I mean, we're a very active family. We love playing volleyball, you know, catch. I couldn't risk getting hit in the head. My daughter accidentally hit me in the head with the volleyball, and it dropped me to the ground. I'd have someone else like come get my car and drive. Like, I was not.
How long after the accident was that?
That was in July, so April to July. And then in August is when, like, they literally put me on lockdown, and I had to cancel any event that I didn't have a contract for. I had to cancel. And so really what everybody's been dealing with, I've been in it for over a year. So
you're so fast that you actually were 7 months before everybody else. So you gotta see how fast you are. That's amazing. So we kind of like skimmed over the accident. So if anybody doesn't know, and honestly, I always watch your recaps if I don't watch the show. And I heard about it, and you and I didn't talk for like months, and I did not know it was as severe as it was, because at face value, that was not meant to be a pun. At face value, it did not, as I said it, I was like, it didn't look that bad. But again, we don't see how fast the spine moves, and we don't see and that's why you always go, how is that injury nothing, and that injury so much more? So go back to the actual injury. Do you remember any of it?
No, it's so weird. I remember being on the starting line, and then the next thing I knew, like, I was in my kitchen in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I was like, what? So that was really weird. So one thing to know is we don't get to watch our runs at all before it airs. So when everybody watched it, like I watched it with the rest of the world. And so that was really almost like I got to piece together some things. Like I have just bits and pieces. But I was in a full sprint, and if you've seen it, it was an obstacle called the surfboards. And they're steel beams that have traction, but not padding. And so I was in a full sprint and tripped. And when the spring came up, it just smashed me in the face. And what happened at that point is I got whiplash. I almost broke my nose. And the doctors were like, oh, if you broke your nose, you would have had to get a nose job. And I'm like, so wait, I could have got a nose job?
Well, I was an inch off, you're saying. Is that what you're saying?
I know. They're like, oh, you're lucky you didn't hit face forward. But I mean, truly, there's lots of things that are very lucky about it. Like where I hit. So for about 6 months, the right side of my face was numb, partial lip numbness. The front half of my tongue was numb. I couldn't fully feel my right arm. And a lot of these as an athlete, like I didn't talk about it because I'm like, it's going to go away. It's going to go away. And so athletes are the worst at their health sometimes. Like you just ignore it and you teach yourself to ignore pain. My shoulder shifted 2 inches because my body caved in. So I was like 2 inches off. And I worked on that in PT and OT, lots of different things. And then the hit offset my vision. So my eyes didn't communicate with each other. And I still have issues with that, but that was the biggest thing that they actually extended. And then they put me with the vision specialist, like the head of the whole brain trauma center, because my vision was getting worse and it wasn't progressing. And the vision really was a catalyst for a lot of my symptoms. Like it would trigger my body for severe anxiety attacks, panic attacks. And none of these things were a part of my vocabulary in my life. And honestly, I even remember when people were like, oh, I had anxiety or panic attack. And I was like, and then when I was experiencing it, I was like, oh, this is awful. And I didn't know what to do. I actually filled up a bathtub and just went and screamed because I thought if I actually screamed, my neighbors thought I was I was dying. And so there was so much to process. I didn't think I had vomited, but later I heard from Barclay, she's like, Maggie, you puked in your mouth, swallowed it, and then went and did your interview. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like I kept hearing things from people. One of my friends was like, you were screaming at me and I didn't know what was going on. She's like, I know that's not you. And like, I was really confused. And like someone said, like, I was refusing to like leave Oklahoma City because I was like, I have plans with my kids. And people were like, you're not okay. Like, so it's so weird to have all these different things. A bunch of people packed up my stuff, put it in my car. A friend from Lincoln like drove us back. There was like a Maggie caravan to get me back to Lincoln. I mean,
and you remember, so you competed, you remember the starting point, and then but didn't you have to compete? So after the fall, you qualified far enough to where you actually had to compete the next day, didn't you? Or no? Or
so finals is when I got my injury.
Oh, so you were eliminated at that point.
Yeah, so day one, I actually fell on those day one, but that's when I caught myself by my fingertips.
Yeah.
And then somehow I became like a miraculous gymnast, and like my foot was like
that's right. You were still in. You hit your face, but you got right back up. I forgot about it. So you continued the rest of your run, which you don't remember, obviously.
So no, day one, I didn't hit my face at all.
Okay,
day
sorry.
One, no. Day one, I didn't hit my face. I tripped on it, but caught myself, got back up. Day two was the face hit, and day two was finals.
Okay.
So
was it state? It was state finals.
City finals.
City finals. Okay, got it. Okay, now I got it. So, but again, when you did hit your face, I keep thinking that you fell. You didn't. You fell and got back up, and you were not eliminated. So you continued the rest of your run.
Yeah. So finals, when I got the injury, fell. Somehow didn't disqualify myself, because if you grab it, you get disqualified. And I think this is, for me, the only way I can explain it. Number one, the hand of God. And then number two, it's every bit of who I am as an athlete at the core. Like I'm a really, really disciplined athlete, to the point that people are like, oh my gosh, isn't training so fun? And I'm like, if you want to come do what I do, call it fun, like cool. But I actually I love discipline. I love the art of discipline, the results of discipline. But like in the moment, if I want to like slap a fun label on it, I probably won't do that all the time. Like it's very methodical and regimented and focused. And so it's teaching my body what to do in the moments of uncertainty. And I approach life the same way. And so in that moment, like I think my body just knew what to do. Like I was in the mode of survival mode. And talking to the therapist later, she's like, honestly, Maggie, I think everything that happened, it's really representative of who you are. You're a survivor. Like you've been in survival mode since you were a child, and it just got played out on national television. Like everything you are at the core. And so getting the warped wall, yep, sweet, 5-year dream, but don't super remember it. Getting the salmon ladder, you know, great. I've done the salmon ladder over and over and over and over and over and over. The warped wall's always been an easy one for me. I just needed to get there.
Yeah. There's a question I'm going to get to in a sec. So, how far did you actually make it on that run?
I made it to this. I fell on the clocks. So I beat salmon ladder and then fell on the clocks. I just probably ran out of steam. And
how close were you to qualifying for national finals or national?
I was really, really close. If I hadn't have fell and then, you know, had all that happen, like I was on track to make it to national finals.
Because it was the obstacle that you got eliminated on that actually was, if you would have made it there in a little quicker time, I think you would have. I mean, you would not have been able to compete, obviously, as we're talking about. But I think it's amazing that you got up, and that was the other thing when I watched it. I was like, well, it doesn't look that bad. She got up and kept going. She got the thing on her face, and it's amazing to know what all had happened inside your brain, which is that moment of why do people prepare? Whether it's in athletics or whether it's in life, you prepare for these oh crap moments. And in these oh crap moments, if you've worked hard enough to get to that point, your brain and your body knows what to do. It kicks in the fight or flight, survival mode, etc. So it just does that. And I think it's interesting is what you talk about. You're not used to having those moments like where you have panic attacks and where you have depression. I think that coming from 2020, your ability to speak to people is going to be immense because there is a whole new group of people that has never battled depression, had issues with depression, never even dealt with these negative thoughts, which I think, I don't know if very many people, no matter how positive they are, that has not had a few like 2020 thoughts creep in their brain. So your audience that can learn from going from a person that has no idea what that feels like to a person that does is huge. So the question I want to bring up that somebody has is, I'm curious if you still have panic attacks, and once you start having them, do they usually continue? How do you deal with them, or how did you deal with them?
Yeah, they started in July of 2019. I haven't had any recently. I almost had one last week. And so here, let me jump back. I started in July of 2019, and then I had them until about March of this year. And when I started to have them, since it was so unfamiliar to me, I went to Madonna Rehabilitation, which is the TBI outpatient center, and I sat down with my speech and cognitive person, and I said, I think I need help. I'm not doing well. I'm pretty sure I'm on the verge of an emotional breakdown. And I said it like that to the point where they were like, so what do you need? I'm like, I don't like to tell people I need help. I don't like to be vulnerable, but this is me telling you I need help. And they were like, okay.
Why do you have a big smile? I don't understand. Blink twice.
Yeah, I mean, really, like the whole vulnerable and I'm weak thing as an elite athlete, like it doesn't mesh with me usually. I mean, I've had injuries along the way, but it's injuries like I can usually manage. I can usually take on. I mean, I had hurt my shoulder so bad at one point, I could barely like shower and take off my sports bra, and I just dealt with it. And so I was like, well, it'll get better. So going back to panic and anxiety attacks, I started with a regular therapist, and then we soon realized like I needed a specific trauma therapist. And the NBC was great. NBC covered all of my medical. They were so supportive as executive producers. Like, I just feel like I always want to say that. Like, I felt so supported when they checked in. Each one of them, every single producer asked how I was doing. They supported everything I needed medically. So that was great. But what it really forced me to do was I had to learn how to sit still. And I didn't do that well. I mean, the first time, like I sat still for like 10 minutes, I was like, like I didn't like it. And then I took a big journal. Like I keep so many journals with me everywhere I go. Sometimes I actually still struggle cognitively, so I have to make sure I write down what I do. And the thing is, like, I just have learned not to be frustrated by it. Like once I learned to let go, because I was a person who could be very in control of her environment and emotions and what I had to get done. And I was so busy. Like I was here and I was there. And then once that slowed down, didn't like it, anxiety. So now I can kind of identify when it might happen, or like if I haven't eaten, like as just not good for me, if I haven't slept. I was basically sleepless from the moment I had my injury until March of this year. Like I couldn't sleep no matter what I did. They sent me to a neurologist, and I was lucky if I slept more than 2 hours at a time. And most nights that's all I got. And they even had prescribed like some sleeping meds, didn't help. I went and saw a specialist in Oklahoma, didn't help. I'm actually not a person who's very big on supplements or anything. I believe in just the food that God gave us. But I tried it and it didn't help. And I was just like I looked up the definition of prisoner of war, and I'm like, I'm a prisoner of war. Like because they intentionally make them not sleep. So that triggered so many things for me. Like if I wasn't hydrated, fueled, and rested, it really set me up for anxiety and panic attacks. And then when they would do my vision therapy, it was so aggressive trying to get my eyes to work together again. Like there were times where I would just fall to the ground and have a straight out like panic attack. And the doctor would like shut her door, and she's like, it's okay. This means progress. Like you need to know that it means like your eyes are trying to work again. And it was really hard for me. And I kind of shut out to a lot of my friends because I didn't want to talk about it either. I just had a really, really small group of people. Because on the outside, everyone was like, I can't wait till you're back. This is so good. You're so strong. And I had never felt more weak.
Yeah.
In my life, and especially emotionally. And then the trauma therapist I had, she goes, Maggie, you're the kind of person who's had so many goals, whether it was Toughest Mudder, International, or Ninja Warrior, or as the mom, but what are your emotional goals? And I was like, no one's ever asked me if I have, do I have emotional goals? And so I really tried to target that. Like, how can I get strong emotionally? And then just even in my faith walk, and, God's like, listen, I want you to go deeper. And even before Ninja Warrior, so my life verse has always been Ephesians 2:10. And then a month before Ninja, God's like Romans 12:1-2. And it's like, present your body as a living and holy sacrifice so your mind can be fully renewed and completely restored. And I was like, first of all, God, I didn't really mean present my body as a living sacrifice, as I was sick, and I'm like, why did you change my verse? And then, just even in a renewing of your mind, I bought a new Bible. I'm in school to get my master's degree for biblical studies. I think God's just really saying, what you've poured into your physical strength, there's really a season that you need to have such great spiritual strength now. It's not that I didn't have it and it was absent, but I'm training 40 hours a week. I'm parenting 40 hours a week. I'm working 40 hours. I was out of time in the day. And yes, I read my Bible, but in terms of digging deeper, that just wasn't there. And I know I sidetracked and I can't remember how I got there.
No,
so everybody, welcome to thought process of where I'm at.
No, and so what's interesting about and where I want to get into your kind of exactly your family background and also how you came up with Never Give Up, but and just because we're talking about one moment in your life, that's how you've, I guess, used that mental muscle memory to go past it. But this is always interesting to me, and people wonder, am I an inspiration? Are you an inspiration? You absolutely are. Everybody is. So it's so funny to look at this. So the tallest runner is a woman named Maria, who had sepsis, lost lost her toes essentially, and wanted to continue to push and run a half marathon. She had never run over 5K. And it's interesting. She says, I'm all for pushing myself and not giving up, but anything head trauma related would scare me. So you look at it, everybody's story that has overcome something can serve as an inspiration to somebody else. And it's like, somebody might have a major, brain injury and go, oh, I'm fighting to overcome it, but at least I can do that. Whereas they might go, I don't know how I would survive without my toes. So everybody has just these different levels of messages that are always going to hit them at the right moment. And that's, again, why I love to hear you speak, because you never know what I'm going through, what somebody else is going through, where your little bit of message will remind them, stop being in your head, get more in your heart. If you're Christian based, get in with God, get in with all the different things that you have at your disposal, and realize you can overcome as long as you keep pushing forward. And Maria just said, sometimes having something tragic in our life helps us find purpose. So
absolutely, I concur with that so much. So good.
So there was another comment that said, did we ever date? No, I fangirl over Maggie. And it's so funny. So I've done so many things all over with sports and some Hollywood stuff. And I've gotten to meet some really, really cool people. And famous people, etc. There's something very different about those that are on TV, that are accessible, that also have a mission to help people. So like when I get to say that I'm friends with Maggie, and get to say that I'm friends with Jesse Graff, or acquaintances with Jesse Graff, whatever. But like this group of people, I get really excited because they're at an accessible level where they are just awesome people, and you get to see a lot of them. Like I think the only time I fangirled on one of my sports events was for Roger Clemens, because he was super cool and he was talking about baseball. Besides that, like that's how I look at people like Maggie, Grant McCarty, the American Ninja Warrior crew, and I got relatively close over the years because of what we did with Titan of Texas Challenge and in Texas State Fair. And honestly, as a whole, some of the most amazing human beings I have ever met, besides just Maggie, just that whole group was ridiculously phenomenal. A lot of them were faith-based, and a lot of them I've never seen people in a competition so competitive yet rooting on each other to succeed. And in the end, it made them all better. And that's the only way I could talk about the American Ninja Warrior group. And actually, I'll ask you that question before you go into it. What is it like being a part of that family? Favorite parts about it?
I mean, it's that word right there. It's family. Everyone's close. They are for each other. And that's probably one of the top questions I've got is people are like, is it real? And I'm like, what else would it be? I mean, yeah, it's real. People, sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, that person's such a camera hog. And I'm like, so the person who is giving up time that they can rest, like off camera, giving off energy that they could save for the course, they're a camera hog. Like they are, like we are for each other, and you bet your bottom, like I'm gonna jump the fence and go cheer for someone. And like if someone's like, hey, will you be on my sideline? I would love to be on your sideline. Like I want to be on everyone's sideline. Like let's cheer each other on. Like, and for you, like you went above and beyond as an announcer when we met you at the Texas Titans games, because you took the time to like, you didn't go sit in a trailer, you didn't go do X, Y, or Z. Like you wanted to know everybody. And when we talk about be the change, the time and intention and what we do one-to-one with people, like that's how change starts to happen. Like it's not necessarily always these big, huge things. Like it can be such small things, so small as little as like, hey, how are you? And how are you? And how are you? Tell me your goals. Tell me your goals. This is cool what you do. And then, these people are like a part of your network. And network, sometimes that word is so misused, but really, and I think this, you could call me and be like, hey, I need this. I'm like, great. I know you're for change. I would love to support you. I would love to help you. Let's do that. Like I am all for those people. I will go to bat because it is risky to have dreams. It is scary. If anybody thinks we have everything figured out all the time, it's so wrong. We don't. Half the time I'm like, I don't know, but I'm going to keep going. And then we'll just keep learning. So,
all right. That is a perfect kind of thing. I was very excited. And Chad, as you remember, Chad was a huge American Ninja Warrior fan. He knew way more about you guys than I did. I watched years before you were on the show. Like I was watching when it was still at its inception. And then I took years off. And then once I started getting back into it, I'm like, oh my God, these are the coolest set of people that don't know they're famous in history. Like I'm like, it was just a different group of people, which is why I ended up getting really, really close to you guys, because of that accessibility, genuineness, and encouragement to want to help other people. So with helping other people, I want to transition to people knowing a little bit. We'll wrap pretty soon, but I want them to really know your whole backstory, how single parent mom, being the family life that you live, just about you in general outside of American Ninja Warrior, and why you feel the need to be an inspiration to people.
Yeah, so my large driving dream, and especially with Never Give Up. So my brother died by suicide and my best friend died by suicide. And both of those things happened before Ninja Warrior. But the day that my best friend died, at her funeral, her coffin was going into the ground. And as I'm watching it lowered, God, number one, spoke to me and said, don't build buildings, build people. I had spent 10 years managing construction projects and building buildings. And the weekend that she died, she'd actually reached out and was like, hey, I want to hang out. And she'd just come home from rehab. She'd been having a really hard time in life for quite a few years. And, I told her I was busy and, we would connect soon. And I realized I really needed to make room in my life for people, and what I had to settle with years later, and I'm going to say this in case anyone's ever wrestled with it, is I was like, man, if I would have hung out with her this weekend, maybe she wouldn't have done it. But the reality is I could have hung out with her and then she still would have. And then I could have felt responsible, and that's someone's own decision. And that was a really hard thing to come to terms with. But then the best way to, live on someone's legacy as someone who's lost is to live out their best characteristics. Because who she was at the core, who I know she was outside of her struggles, and was a person who was joyful and triumphant and had a heart for people. And, so I get to honor her in that way. And a lot of things that I do. My brother was a crazy wild guy, super daredevil. I am not that. People think I am. They're like, oh my gosh, you're so fearless. And I'm like, hold the phone. I'm scared of heights. I'm scared of small spaces. I'm scared of spiders. I have a whole list of things. But I think it's important to face fears. And I think that's actually really, really important. I do things that scare me intentionally, not unsafe, but things that I'm like, well, if I did that, maybe I can go for this big dream. So jumping back to that, that's the never give up. And then as you heard, the bow, it's anything you want to be, you can be whatever you want for the rest of your life. I managed $340 million in construction projects. And the reason I got to do that is I actually was a worker on the grounds crew picking up trash. I filled in for a secretary. There was a group of guys talking. I spoke up and shared an idea. And that one day, that one idea became a decade-long career of designing the facilities I used to clean. And that was out of college. So I believe it. And there's nothing that set the table for me to do that in life. I didn't come from money. We lived with another family. I grew up wearing my brother's clothes. Mother's Day for us was my mom getting a call that my brother was in jail and needed bond. And I'm like, do you want change? Be it. It's exactly what is here, what is on your thing. We can do that. It's small, intentional decisions, sacrifices, and then never giving up on it.
Have you ever read The Alchemist?
I have not.
Are you kidding me? All right, so that's your next book. It also will take no time whatsoever. I'm not even a book fan, but it's interesting the way you explain things, because it is one of those ones you were. So the kind of the concept behind it is there's this person that's always looking for something, and they're looking for exactly that one thing. Whereas somebody like you were helping clean it. You were doing this thing, but you got a small opportunity, but you didn't get a job offer. You got an opportunity. And it's all these things that are along your journey and along your path that you have to put yourself out there and try something different. And if you're specifically looking for this exact perfect opportunity, you're going to be passing by all these other things that are going to get you to the exact same place faster by just opening your eyes. So that's kind of the concept of Alchemist. And that's kind of what you just described, which is be open to helping other people, to serving other people, and never knowing when the right moment will strike for being able to move past your current surroundings and where you are in life. So honestly, I didn't even know that.
It sounds like I'm going to love that book. And I just want to echo that for a second. Most of the things that I've had happen, I would say since about 2005, I'm going to keep getting dates messed up, but is because like, I'm not above anything or anyone. And there are people who are, and I love them where they're at, but opportunities came 5 years later from a moment when, some of my friends were like, oh, we're just going to do this and we're going to do that. And I saw someone like cleaning up something and I'm like, hey, do you need help with that? 5 years later, that person hired me to take on something to a national level. And they were like, you know what? I actually never forgot the day that everyone else was busy and they were talking and you came over and you helped. And I was like, oh, I just saw a need. And time and time and time again. So I want to encourage people to do that, and don't do it with the heart that something's going to come out of it, because that's not always the case. It's just the heart of living outside of yourself. And you could be the CEO of a company, but scrub something off the ground every once in a while.
Well, it's funny. It's like you say that nothing comes out of it, or you say don't do it hoping something comes out of it, but ultimately do it knowing that something will come out of it internally. You will feel better about yourself. That's the only thing that you expect, and the rest will come. The rest will happen. The rest will in its own time. And I've had a lot of moments where it goes that way in sales, it goes that way in service, it goes that way in anything, that if you have a good customer experience with somebody or a good relationship built with somebody, you may not get the job, you may not get the client in that moment, but if you handle things with grace and kindness, you never know. 6 months later, a year later, I used to get that all the time in my staffing industry business, where people would go, I remember you pitched us like 8 months ago. We didn't use you, but we want to use you now. And you just think that they've left you behind. That one moment, you shouldn't feel dejected. And every no sometimes, not always, but sometimes does end up leading to a yes. Before we wrap, I do want people to know a little bit about your family, because your kids are friggin' rock stars. 100%. And I'm going to take us back to the first year you were in the Texas Titan of Texas Challenge. And I remember she's got kids at the time that couldn't have been like 4, 5, and 7 or something along those lines. They were young. And they were climbing up wood beams. They were doing backflips. I remember Chad was going like, these kids are going to hurt themselves. I don't know I'm like, look at their mother. They're going to be fine. They are going to be absolutely fine. But you've got this enormous family. Well, they're not enormous. They're just a lot, because they've got a lot of energy, that are also awesome kids. And I would love for you to share a little bit about them and how you've gotten to raise them and the pride you take in that.
Yeah. So I have 3 kids and they're amazing. They're actually somewhere in this house. I was like, hey, if you guys are all good, you might get popsicles. So shout out to them for being quiet. But my son just turned 14. I have a daughter that's 11. And then my youngest is 9. And yeah, I was still in my stroller days when I first met you at Texas Titan Challenge. But yeah, my oldest 2, they do sports. My youngest could really care less. She runs 10 yards and thinks she's going to collapse, and that's fine. She's a socialite. Like, she'll rally all the other little kids at their games, and like by the end of it, she's like, I have 10 new best friends. And I'm like, I think we need to define what best friend is, sweetheart. She's a lover. So she wants to start an orphanage. She actually started a notebook at 9 years old called Ellie's Orphans. And she has a list of what she's going to do. And she has a donation box. So like, that's her heart, is service. And that's great. My middle daughter wants to run a company. Like, she says it. She's like, I want to be a CAO. She plays tackle football on a boys team. She's the captain. She gets her last game, she got 20 tackles, 6 carries, a turnover. She's a monster. I mean, she can squat 200 pounds. She's 11 years old. She can do 20 pull-ups. So
I'm legit scared of her. I'm not going to lie. Like, I would not go up against her across the line of scrimmage.
Strong. I mean, beautifully strong. And actually, she was, I was going to show you guys, she was in a book with me called Strong Like Her. I just got to celebrate this real quick. She's the only girl in this book. It's called Strong Like Her.
Go ahead and do it. Yeah. It's all you. Yep.
Let me do it. So the recipe, this whole book is Olympians and celebrities, quote unquote, and she's the only young girl that's in this, and that was so special to me. She flew to New York and did a photo shoot with Sophie Holland, who shoots ESPN Body Mag. So great experience. And even if she decides not to do sports, I love her. She's a leader. She likes to help. And then my son, he's a gamer. Trying to work on that, being like, maybe not game so much. Work in progress. And when he's on the field doing sports, I mean, he just wants to be with his friends. Like, he loves to hang. He doesn't. If you ever watch any of my ANW videos, he's like he doesn't like to be on camera, but he'll do it because he loves his mama. My other two are like, they got to do a video with Logan Paul and stuff, and they're like, we were with Logan Paul, and I'm like, all right, guys, let's redefine that, kiddos. They're great. I'm so fortunate for them.
So, and you were with them. You have them the bulk of the time, correct? Are you like, is it 50s, 80? Because I know I always see you with them on Instagram and all that stuff. So it seems like they're always with you or with you most of the time.
Yeah, we're 80-20. So they're with their dad every other weekend. And he gets to see him every Thursday. And so
the reason I bring that up is to be very specific, because I saw a couple people on the side like, I wish I had the discipline. I wish I had the time, etc. You're raising 3 children and doing the things that you do. How would you recommend people make the time? What would incense them to go, I need to make the time to take my health for serious and get back in shape, or to stay healthy, etc.?
Yeah, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. Like, you have to know that every goal or dream has a sacrifice, and you just have to know that ahead of time. I do have to be really disciplined with my time. Something after my brain injury, I really build in rest, which means I actually have to say no to a lot of activities. Like, if friends want to hang out, and I love my friends, there's just times I can't do it now, and I have to say no to things. I actually gave up TV and social media for 30 days in September.
Which is why you weren't on in September. You were going to be one of my first guests, but we had to wait till the blackout was over.
And thank you for respecting that. So I try to be disciplined with that. Like, I will be honest, I love to veg in front of the TV, but I'm actually trying to like fall out of love with that. And I didn't realize until I did that 30-day fast from TV. Like, I used to joke like, oh, I date Netflix and HBO. And during the fast, I found myself one day like crying. I was like, I really do date Netflix and HBO. And I was like talking to my Alexa. I was like, good night, Alexa. And like my Alexa would talk, like say good night back. And I was like, oh, like, I was so sad. It was like a sad moment in your life as a single parent. Like, my kids are with their dads or with their dad. So yeah, and there's things I've had to learn, like, I cannot be a neat freak about my house. The minute my house is spotless, the moment my kids step in, it's gone. And so I have to balance it and know that some things it's okay to wait. Like, where does that goal sit on your priority list? And I'll say, just think about it like a penny. Every small decision eventually adds up, just like a penny. Like, people don't really pick up pennies anymore. They're like, a penny, what's it worth? But every decision we make has value, and you can't see it initially, and it might be years, but eventually it's going to add up to something. And I will say, like, my nutritional habits really added up for me when I couldn't work out, and I actually maintained like my physique, and I didn't work out. I literally physically could do nothing but stretch and foam roll and like paddleboard every couple weeks from August of 2019 until February of 2020. That's a long time.
Right.
I was talking to people about it because I was like, I don't understand this. Like, I don't know why I still have a 6-pack. I don't know why I'm still jacked. Like, this is so confusing. And I would like show up to events and I still had my strength too. And I'm like, yeah. And someone's like, you worked so hard for so long and stayed so disciplined. You built a new baseline. So what new baseline do you want to build? What sacrifice do you want to pay? And what pennies are you going to put in?
Good callback on the pennies. That was good. All right. The last thing that I do want to talk about is all the different initiatives you have right now, the change that you're creating, so people can know a little bit about it. I know there's the Girl Scouts, and then there's all the motivational speaking that both you and I are a little bit on pause with. Thanks a lot, COVID. But talk a little bit about Girl Scouts and talk about what you have going on.
Yeah, I was supposed to speak at the Girl Scouts National Convention. Actually, it would have been right now. So in October. But the Girl Scouts has been a big initiative. We created the Bow Patch, and it encourages girls to equip, empower, and engage. And it's to teach them the power of like working out together with a group and what that means to encourage one another and being able to equip themselves as entrepreneurs. So each girl had to write a one-page business plan, and it could have been Princess Kitty Cake Shop. But I want girls to know it's not about breaking glass ceilings. It's about building your own buildings now. Like this isn't, it's 2020. We don't have to step back anymore. And I never actually saw it that way with my career. So I want them to know that as well. And then the community engagement part, teaching them the importance of small things matter. So, maybe finding 10 people and getting each person to donate $1, but then taking that $10 to donate to like feed one, and $10 feeds a kid for a month. So understanding small actions add up in community engagement. Everything doesn't have to be some massive fundraising effort. Like it all matters. So that's huge for that. And I love that side of it. And then my kids and I do a lot of community service, and my girls are both Girl Scouts. I was a Girl Scout, so we continue to do a number of things with them. Doing some things with World Orphans. I was just part of their Story Maker conference. They help empower families actually to stay together so orphans can return home to their families and they don't have to stay in orphanages, which is pretty cool. And then, as you heard, getting my master's degree in biblical studies from Colorado Christian University, because that made sense. God's like, yo, get your master's degree. And I'm like, I don't have time. And like, I still, like cognitively, I wasn't sure I could do it. And week after week, 8 weeks in, it's plugging along.
I think you and I talked about that before the show. I forgot about that. So you're also going back to get your master's degree right now. So again, in terms of time management, if anybody's wondering, it is possible.
It's always possible. We choose.
Yeah. I mean, COVID has taught us we don't have to hang out with our friends as much as we thought. So there's that. As much as we love it, there's some that we do and we don't take the time to do. But again, if there is it's all about placing importance of what is important to you, what God, for Maggie's case, what God has called her to do. In your case is what you feel is the number one importance. And this goes for everything. This is the only political statement I'll make is you can't project your beliefs on a political level or in life onto other people. What is the most important thing in your life is not going to be the most important thing in somebody else's. Like just because Maggie thought that the two, her family and her going back to school at the seminary were the two things that at that moment she needed to have the most importance on. It does not mean that's for everybody else. Like everybody's like, man, I feel guilty. I'm not going back to school. I feel like I should. If that is not at the top of your list, she's not projecting it on you. She's projecting her passion and saying whatever your top things are in your brain and your life and what you feel called to do, attack them, go after them. Don't feel failure with them. Don't worry about getting knocked down. You're going to fail, but never give up and get back up again. So that's what I always get from Maggie.
And I will say right now, I kind of have like a normal people job. So I freelance consult and I do project management, but I will say I'm just really honest with people and where I'm at in my like brain injury recovery as I approach it and write contracts. Like I want to be upfront and I'm not going to just like overpromise and underdeliver. It's not that kind of thing. I'm just like, hey, I want to be really truthful. This is exactly where I'm at. This is what I can do. And I just want you to know that ahead of time. And everyone's been so appreciative of it and understanding. And so just be real about it with people and where you're at in the journey too. And that will help set you up for success, I think.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to let you take us out. Before we do, I do want to share with you guys again, I know beginning, end of the episode. So if you see on the bottom, we do have a Patreon set up. As of next week, we'll have a little trivia for people with some free swag from Be The Change. If you are a Patreon member, so make sure you join it. It starts at $5. Everything that we do, $5 monthly, everything we do on this network is currently completely out of our own pocket because we're trying to share positivity. Sometimes we share a political message, as a lot of you guys know. And then we also really just like the idea of sharing people's stories and getting out positive messages that you guys can share. So if you want to support us, patreon.com/BeTheChangeUSA. And again, we do have gear, these red shirts, which have never been on the website, the long sleeves. Don't worry about what Maggie's wearing on the tank top, because the tank tops will be back during summer, but we still have t-shirts. Yes, but that's fine. No, it's good. It's still showing the cool gear, and you wear it well. That's about all we got for you from Be the Change. We will be doing Streetlights group, by the way. Streetlights groups have grown. We now have, I got to tell you about this a little bit, Maggie, after we get off. Streetlights, we're now over 30 states across the country that are starting to fill in groups in Facebook where people can help each other. I got to coach you guys a little bit on how those work, but Cash and I need to create a video for that so you know a little bit more about it and can do it accurately, correctly, etc. With that said, thank you guys so much for your support in the last week. I know I've had some family stuff, and I've gotten immense amount of messages and prayers, and I thank you guys for that. Thank you for joining us. Seth Rotberg tomorrow. He is family members have Huntington's disease or Huntington's chorea. I have a little experience with that with my father dating a woman with that near the end of his and her life. But that'll be tomorrow night for Changemakers. So 2 positive shows this week. I hope you'll enjoy it. Share that as well. Maggie, a final message for everybody watching. Please inspire our viewers.
Well, I know we covered a lot today, but I'm going to go down to the message that I say all the time is no matter what your dream is, you can have it at any age. You heard me say it throughout, and it's because I believe it, and I believe it for you. And if you don't believe in yourself right now, I want you to look up or either go down, say a prayer, and never give up on any dream that you have.
Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, be the change you wish to see in the world.